And so if you want to use the AgensGraph, pgadmin for the AgensGraph, actually you can first, of course, you need to log into the pgadmin in your browser, and then you can connect to the database in AgensGraph. To do that, first you can say here I have a server group called servers, and I have make a connection to the Unibench M3D database. And it has two schemas, public and the Unibench graph. In the public is a relational tables that we have imported into the database. And for the Unibench graph, actually it is a schema for the graph, like the person knows person, we can and the customer. And actually you can create many server groups connections as you want. So I will show you how to connect a new server group. To do that, first, of course, you can click this one and create a new server group, and let's give it a name as Unibench test, and click save. And next, you can say that currently we have no database in this server groups, and we can click. Then you can click object and register and the server. Click server, and now you need to set the parameters for the server. Here I will give the name as, for example, as Unibench M3D or Unibench data house, and this is the name of the server. And we can select the server group, because you can choose server and the Unibench test. And next, you need to set the connection name. Here we will use the localhost. And you need to set the port number based on your installation. And the maintain database is this should be the database in AgensGraph that you want to connect. Because I have created a database in AgensGraph called Unibench M3D. So here I will use this name, and the username is agents. And you need to type in the password, and you don't need to set all the parameters in the other tab. And now you can click save, and you can say here in the Unibench test server groups, I have called a server called the Unibench DW, and inside this server I have three databases. This Unibench M3D is the database that I want to connect in the AgensGraph. And you can say here I have two schemas. One is the public schema, and one is the Unibench graph schema. And below, inside the public schema, you will find the relational tables, like for the full relational schema, M3D schema, and the non-relational schema. And in the Unibench graph, of course, you can find the other tables. Actually, you can say that this is different from the public schema, because actually this is in this Unibench graph, the data are modeled as a graph, a property graph. So after that, you can conduct your queries. For example, you can conduct the queries inside the pgadmin. So I guess this is how to use the pgadmin to connect to the AgensGraph. So any other questions about the pgadmin for AgensGraph? Okay, if not, I will stop sharing and use another computer to tell how to install AgensGraph in Docker. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I use another computer. So let me share my screen. So if you want not, if you don't not need the AgensGraph in Docker, you can just leave. Yeah. So some students said that they have some problems when using the AgensGraph in Windows and the MacOS. I spent some time to study those problems, and finally I found that we can use a Docker to install the AgensGraph to solve those problems. So in this guide, I will teach you how to install AgensGraph in Docker to solve these problems in Windows and macOS. So Docker is an open source platform that use containers, and the developers can use it to create, deploy, and run different applications. So Docker is different from the virtual machine. You don't need to create a virtual operation system. You can run applications using this system kernel. So this means if you want to install the AgensGraph with Docker, and if you don't need it, you just remove the image and the container in the Docker, and you don't need to install it from your host system. So here are some references about how to install Docker on Windows and macOS. The first two are the official documentation. And here is a YouTube video about how to install Docker on macOS. Because in this tutorial, I will only tell about how to install Docker on Windows. But I think in macOS it is more simpler than in Windows. And I also refer to this article about how to restore the files for the AgensGraph in the Docker container. So there are overall 3 steps to install Docker and AgensGraph in your system. First is to install Docker in your computer, and the next step is to run the AgensGraph image and the container with the Docker. And the last step is to import the dataset and conduct the queries. So next, I will use Windows 10 as an example to show you how to install the Docker and the AgensGraph. macOS can refer to the documentation and the video about how to install Docker. So first, to install the Docker in Windows or macOS, first you need to download the Docker desktop installer from this website. And you can, if you use Windows, you can click this one to download the installer. But if you use macOS, you can click this Mac with internal chip or with Apple chip. This should be based on your computer. And after you download this installer, the next step is very important. That in Windows 10, for example, you need to enable the virtualization in the BIOS. So to enable the BIOS, you need to power off or restart your computer. And before the computer is totally restart, you need to press the hotkeys. For example, the F1, F2, or maybe F12. It is based on your computer, and you need to then navigate to the settings of the BIOS, and you need to find the virtualization and set it as enabled. After that, you need to save the changes and reboot your computer. And finally, you can use the task manager in Windows to check whether the virtualization is enabled or not. You can find it here. If it shows the virtualization is enabled, that means you have successfully enabled the virtualization. So next step is to check your Windows version. So this is very important because you need to select, next you need to select the installation method based on your Windows version. So you can just press Windows plus R, for example, like this, Windows plus R, and press WinVer to say the to say the Windows information of your computer. You can say that my Windows version is 2004, and the build version is 1904, and it is a Windows 10 professional version. So it shows here. And after that, you need to enable the Hyper-V or the WSL2 backend based on your Windows version information. For example, here I show the system requirements for the if you want to use the Hyper-V backend for the Windows. So this means if you use a Windows 11 with 64 bits and it is a professional version with this version or higher, or it is an enterprise or education version, you can use the Hyper-V backend. And if you use Windows 10 and it has a version like the professional or higher or enterprise and education, you can use this one. But if you but your system does not meet these requirements, you cannot use the Hyper-V. For example, if you use the Windows 10 Home version, so you need to use the WSL2 backend. So I didn't show here the WSL2 backend of the requirements. You can check it on the website. So I recommend you to use the Hyper-V backend because it is easier to configure and using the WSL2 backend. So to how to enable the Hyper-V, it is very simple. You can open the control panel in Windows and then click Programs. And the next, you can click turn off the Windows feature on or off. And in this window, you need to select the Hyper-V folder with, of course, with these two subfolders selected, and click OK. After that, you need to wait several minutes and then restart the computer. And after that, after you enable the Hyper-V and the virtualization, now you can install the Docker. So you can just double-click the installer that we downloaded before, and this one. And in the first step, so you should not do not select this one, because here I made a mistake. This is why I have some problems later. So you just not select this one. This means you will not use say WSL2 instead of Hyper-V. But if you use say WSL2, and you should, of course, you should select this one, and you just wait some time, and finally click the close and restart your computer. So because I will not use say WSL2, but use Hyper-V, so I need to set some setting values. So for Windows users, you can go to this path. So you need to focus that this username is made different from mine, and you can find a file called settings.json. You need to open this files and change this WSL engine enabled as false. This means we will not use the WSL2 backend. Instead, we will use the Hyper-V backend. And after that, you need to restart your Docker desktop service. For example, you can go to the service window and find this. This is the Docker desktop service, and right-click to select the restart action. And until the first step, until now, we have installed the Docker in your Windows or MacOS. Next step, we can run the AgensGraph in the Docker. So to do that, you can just open and run the Docker. For example, you can double-click the shortcut in the desktop, this one in your system, and after that, you will see a welcome window like that. You just select accept the terms and click accept. Of course, you need to sign up and log into the account in the Docker. You can sign up account in the website of the Docker. And if you can successfully running the Docker, you will see a window like that. And of course, you can say here, I have a coin in the toolbar, and you can just right click on this one. And if you can say that this circle is green, and it shows that Docker desktop is running, that means your Docker has been running successfully. But if you say some information like Docker desktop stop it here at this window, so you just right click the icon, this one, the Docker icon, and click the troubleshoot, and then you can click clean and purge date, and select the WSL2, and then click delete. Maybe this can be helpful if you to restart your Docker. So, and another way to restart your Docker is if your Docker is not running successfully, you can right click on this icon and click restart to restart your Docker. So it will take some times to restart the Docker. You just be patient to wait for it to successfully starting. And here, of course, here I show you how to delete the WSL2 files. And if you can say this green circle and this Docker desktop is running, that means you have been successfully run the Docker. Next, you need to open a PowerShell and run this command to check the information. For example, we can open a PowerShell. And use a Docker version command to check the information of the Docker. Yeah, you can say that the information of my Docker is this one, and of course you can show more information to delete the two hyphens. You will say more information about the Docker. So and of course you can run the Docker, the hello world of Docker. Sorry, let me just copy this one. So this is about the version of the Docker, and of course you can run the Docker run hello world command to check that whether you have successfully run this Docker. Let's go back to the sorry. So if you can say the information like that, this means your Docker has been running successfully. So next, this means we can install the AgensGraph next. So next step is install AgensGraph. So you can in this PowerShell and run this command. So this means we will run a Docker, and the name of the Docker is AgensGraph, and we set some parameters and the Docker is from this this link. It is the latest version of AgensGraph. You can just copy this to the PowerShell, and you can say that finally you will say, if you can say something like that, this means you have successfully installed the AgensGraph in the Docker stop. After that, you will say images in your Docker window, for example, like that. Here in the images, you can say that this hello world is what I just executed previous. And here is the image of the AgensGraph that we installed in a Docker. And the next step, we can connect. You can connect to the AgensGraph container, and to do that, you can use the Docker this command to find the container name and the container ID in which the AgensGraph is running. For example, here the container ID is this one, and the container names is AgensGraph. These two parameters is very important for further processing. You need to focus on these two. So let's run this one in my PowerShell. So you can say that currently there is a container. The name is AgensGraph, and the container ID. The container ID is this one, because I have run a hello world, of course. So this is the name and the container ID of the hello world. You can focus on this one, the second one. And the next step is to run the below command to enter into the container. So for example, you need to run the Docker exec, the -IT and the container ID. So you need to replace this container ID based on your previous step. For example, here my container ID is this one. So I will use this command to enter into the container. So let's just copy this one. Docker. Of course, you need to replace the container ID with this one, because this is the container ID of the AgensGraph. And then run it. Sorry. Here's a space. It's not running, right? I don't know why it shows that. Let's go back to the doc image to check. Oh yeah, you need to start this image. Let's start this one, and now it shows it is running. And of course, let's go back to the PowerShell and execute this again. And now you can say that I have get into the bash, right? Now this means you can connect to the AgensGraph using the comment agents post. So you should focus that in the Docker version of AgensGraph, we didn't have the user called agents. We only have the user called Postgres, but we also have the comment called agents. Here I will use the user Postgres to connect the database of the Postgres. And you can say that now I have successfully go into the AgensGraph. So let's put some comment, and you can say that here I have several databases. There is a database called Unibench M3D, which I have created and imported the dataset before. Of course, you can also go into the bash, not in the PowerShell, but in the Docker stop, and you click the containers, and here found the AgensGraph container, and click this one, this CLI, and click this one is also going to the bash. You can find this title. This title is the same with the command that we executed in the PowerShell, right? So here you can use the agents Postgres user and connect to the Postgres database. And of course, it shows it has the same function to go into the database. You can see I also have some database. So you can choose any one of the method to go into the AgensGraph. So let's close this one. Yeah, this command is to go into the container and use this command to connect to the database. And the next step is, of course, you need to create the M3D Unibench M3D database and the graph. This is the same in the GitHub, and you can execute these 3 commands like that. And after that, you can import the dataset and conduct the queries in the AgensGraph in the Docker. So actually, the Docker containers have its own volumes. So this means you need to transfer the M3D DOM file from your host system to the Docker container. So to do that, you can first open a new PowerShell. So this means if you have connected to the database, right, you cannot just execute this one in this connection. Instead, you need to create a new PowerShell. And in this PowerShell, you need to execute this command. Similarly, you need to replace the container ID with the container ID of your AgensGraph, because my container ID is this one, so I will use it in my PowerShell. And finally, it shows the volume information here, because for example here I have a volume. This type is a volume, and the destination is a volume parse of this volume. So finally, later we will use this parse. And now you can copy the M3D DOM file from your host computer, for example Windows, to the Docker, to the container. So of course you need to first download this M3D file from the GitHub, and you then you need to run this command. So here the command means we run a Docker command, and this is copy a file from this parse to another parse, and this is the container name here, because the parse of the M3D file in my computer is this one. So I'll use this one to replace this one here. And the container name is AgensGraph, right? Because you can, let's go back to this one. We have found the container name using this command. It is AgensGraph. So you will use the AgensGraph to replace the container name. And finally, there is comma here. You should not ignore this one. And finally say pass to the volume in the Docker. Here you can say I will use this volume. So I will use this one to replace the pass to the volume. And finally, this is a comment that I will run to transfer the M3D dump file from my host system to the Docker. So it will take some time to transfer the file. You just be patient. And after that, we have, and until now, we have transferred the file into the Docker. And finally, you can execute the pg restore command in your Docker to import the data import the data set into the AgensGraph in the Docker. So to do that, you need to run this command. So let me explain what it means. So of course, first you need to run docker exec and replace the container name with the name in your container. It is AgensGraph in my container, and pg restore, and specify the username. It is Postgres, not Agents. It is a little different from the GitHub. You should be pay attention to that. And we specify the database that we want to import. It is Unibench M3D. This database is what we have created before, and specify 3 parameters. And finally, this is very important parameter. So if you remember, we have used this command to transfer our file from the host system to the container, and you can see that we have transferred to this parse, right? So this means the m3d.mp file is in this parse. So this is why I use this parse and followed by m3d dump. And finally, you can run this command here. I will not run it again because I have imported the data set into the AgensGraph. And you can say this, I run this command here, and it will take a lot of time to import the data set. And it will show the same information if you use AgensGraph without a Docker, it is the same. And if you can import the dataset successfully, you can run the queries like the FR, NR, and M3D queries. And I found that all the problems that the students have, like some tables are empty because the AgensGraph is in Windows has not the lib XML, and these problems can all be solved with the Docker. So you can just enjoy your hands-on session. So this is about how to install the Docker and AgensGraph and import the dataset. So I have uploaded this PDF file in the GitHub, so you can just find the information. I also update the instructions in the GitHub. You can find the latest information about this installation. So thank you. Any questions about the installation?
Great, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Zhentong, for this detailed explanation. Yes. Okay, is there any questions? Yeah, I see the one student. Yeah, that's good. Okay, yeah, if there is no questions, yes, so yeah, thank you, Zhentong, yeah, and the Dominic, yes, they will ask. Okay, good. Okay, so then I will close this session, yeah, and have a nice weekend. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.